Hey Nick, great to catch up. So let's do some analysis. This is you before we've done any work. So this is the first video of you this morning. So let's go and have a look at some of the stuff. And I'll try and give you a flavour of how I go about it when I'm reporting back to someone. So we're going to play it first of all. Okay, and secondly, I'm going to play it in slow motion for you. Annoyingly, I should have taken that black box out from the back beforehand, but it's not the end of the world. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to start with the feet and we'll work up the chain. So we're going to go to the point of initial foot strike, and have we struck the ground there? Very possibly. I think there's the very first part of initial foot strike here. So we're going to have a look where your foot is striking in relation to your centre of mass. So if we take a line straight down from the hip, okay, we can see there that that foot is striking quite significantly in front of that line. And what I mean by that is this distance here. It is quite a bit in front of your centre of mass. So that's probably, let's say, about 12 inches or so. It's a decent amount of distance. Ideally, we want that to be about 2 to 3 inches in front of the centre of mass. So the foot striking much closer to that red line than we are at the moment. If I draw a line up directly from your leading ankle, you can see that that is quite significantly in front of the torso as well. So it's creating braking forces every time your foot strikes the ground. And if I draw a line up from your ankle to your knee, you can see that there's a negative angle of the shin there. So what that means is it's going to be slowing you down with braking forces every time your foot strikes. And it also means that there are greater ground reaction forces that are going to be going from the ground back up in this direction, up the leg. What does that mean? It means that when you land in this position, you are far more likely to experience niggles and injuries over time. And even if you're not experiencing niggles and injuries at the moment, likelihood is that you may do in the future, particularly if you get into high volume training for an ultramarathon. But the other thing as well to factor in is that this causes greater mechanical breakdown. So there's going to be more stress placed on muscle, bone, and other connective tissue. So later in an ultra marathon or marathon, half marathon, 10K, whatever that distance is, but for you, particularly ultra marathon stuff, it is going to cause more fatigue. So that is definitely something that we want to be aware of. So it's always important to have a look on both legs. So let's go and have a look at what is happening on the left foot. This is just before you strike the ground. You've got your first point of contact here. So let's have a look and analyze. So we go down from the hip directly down. You can see that we have got this overstride in place here. It's a very similar gap between the centre of mass and the back of the heel as there is at the knee. So when you get that gapping between the knee, that's one of the things that we look for and is usually a sign of an overstride. So if I draw that line up directly from the ankle again, I'm just going to reposition that very slightly to make sure that it's like for like. And you can see there that it's just skimming that leading knee. The leading knee needs to be one of the positions in distance running that coaches often look for is the ankle being directly underneath the knee at foot strike. Okay, so yours is fractionally in front here. And just to show you that these braking forces that we identified on the other side are still there. So this is an overstride. It's going to slow you down. It's going to cause more fatigue, and it's more likely to cause injury over time as well. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to look at is just what's happening at the hips. So just to see whether there is any loss of height. So you've got your very first part of the left foot strike here, ground contact, slightly heel first on the outside edge. So those are things for us to be aware of as well. And then as we move through the stance phase, I have put that red line where the base of your t-shirt would be. I know it's slightly blocked out by the arm of the treadmill, but you can see here as you move into mid-stance phase that actually your t-shirt has now become visible underneath that arm on the treadmill. So there is absolutely some compression happening in this direction. Now that's a maybe a giveaway that there's something happening at the hips potentially. The other thing that can be as well that distance running coaches look at is something called leg spring stiffness. So as your foot strikes the ground, higher level runners achieve a point of stiffness, which is called the amortization phase, if you want to get complicated about it, faster, and allowing them to spring off the ground. Now, for you, this compression is happening, which may be happening around the hip area, or it could be happening at the knee and partly at the ankle as well. But the longer that compression goes on, the longer it is going to take you to become airborne again, okay? And it also means that you're going to lose the beneficial plyometric effect and spring effect of your calf and Achilles tendon. So combined with the overstride, we quite often see this loss of height. We'll have a look at the hips from the back view and we'll see what's happening there. But it's something that with low-level plyometric training we can look to improve in various ways, and it may be strength related as well. But either way, it's going to help if we can improve this, spring you off the ground more efficiently, which is going to have a lower oxygen, energy cost, and reduce fatigue, which is another good thing. Let's move through and just see what's happening on the other side. So there we go, we're going upwards. We don't want to have too much bouncing. Foot's about to strike the ground. It's probably towards the heel, midfoot on your right side. It's more heel on the left. You can see that the bottom of the t-shirt has disappeared behind the bar on the treadmill. As we go into mid-stance phase here, it becomes very visible again. Just to mark that so that we're clear, is this. And then we have definitely got some form of compression happening in this direction. So we need to have a look at a few things to see what that is, and with good quality training and strength training and stability and activation, it should be something that we see improve over the course of a 6-week block. Okay, so the next thing for us to have a look at is just how active your posterior chain is. And one thing that you reported from various runs, but particularly towards the end of the ultra marathon, was the way that you were feeling it around the knee, particularly on the left hand side, and really tired through the quads, and they were frying a little bit. I think you described it as when you were coming down the hills. So let's have a look what's happening with the posterior chain here. So what I mean by that is we're going to have a look at what's happening with the foot at the back. So you've just toed off. You can see that the foot is still some way behind you. You're still in flight phase here. Now what we want is a fast recovery of the leg to bring it through so it can then strike the ground again in a good position. You have quite a low recovery. I've seen lower. It's not disastrous, but we can improve it. Low recovery of the heel here. So the limb is still relatively long, and the longer the limb, the slower it then moves through. And the longer it takes you to move through, the less likely you are to get into a good position to then strike the ground. And we see this little bit of an overstride here, although this foot strike, this individual one, is a little bit better, okay? But we've got a low heel recovery. Take that last line off. Looking at the back foot again, you can see this is on the left leg, and it's roughly the same height as the right as it comes off the ground. Now, what do we want to see here? We want to see the heel picking up much, much closer towards the glutes, okay? So if I take all of those lines off, the sort of position that we would see is as your upper leg is in this position, we would see that the foot is in this position. So it is much, much closer to the glutes, and that's going to shorten the limb length. It also means that you're really activating the hamstring and glutes, which is going to help propel you forward. And it's going to eventually help have a knock-on effect to the position you're in to strike the ground at the front. Okay, I got bored of red lines, so I've put a yellow one on. And the last thing that we're going to look at here is just the position of the arms. Now, you can see you've got an 81-degree bend at the arm, at the elbow. So that's actually pretty good. That's not a bad thing. Anything from 90 degrees or less is a good position. Some elite runners will be significantly less than that in distance events. But this is a reasonable position here. So good from that point of view. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to play it in full speed so that you can see it, and then I'll chat to you a little bit again. Okay, so here's my thing, is the actual arm angle is okay, but the arms when we run, we're contralateral, so our arm action is very much connected to our legs. So as our right arm is driving, our left leg is coming through, and simultaneously as my left arm is working, my right leg is working in conjunction with that. So our arms give us rhythm, they give us balance, and they give us speed. So I'm going to play it again, and the first thing that I'm going to mention is that I think that the arm's just a little bit slow. Okay, so I want us to speed that up a little bit. Now, if we move forward to the point where you are, so this is the furthest your hand goes, and it gets to about this sort of position here, just below chest height. What I would love to see is that it's actually a little bit higher here, up more towards the shoulder, moving from the shoulder socket down to the pocket at the back. So if I take those lines off, position at the back is not too bad. I quite like this elbow position, but it's the dynamic elbow moving backwards that gives us a lot of speed and power when we're running, and it is linked directly into what is happening with this leg. So you can see that you're just about to toe off here as your elbow moves back. So the more dynamic we can make that action, the more power we're going to generate with our left leg as we toe off, and vice versa with the other arm. Final thing to mention before we move on is I just want you to have a look at this hand as it moves forward, and I just think that we have got a slight movement across the front, and we might see that a little bit more from the back. So it's coming forward, and I think it just goes slightly around the front in this position, which possibly is generating some force in a direction. There's too much rotation happening up top. We will have a look at that from the back. Loads to think about, but all things that you're a very good runner already. Loads for us to look at, loads for us to improve, and we can make you an even better runner moving forward.